This week on the first three, let's talk about Oshi no Ko, a show that has a lot to say about the idol industry as well as the entertainment industry at large. Its extra long first episode sent shockwaves through the anime world, and I certainly had more than a few friends tell me that I had to watch this show. So let's take a look at this supersized first episode of Oshi no Ko, as well as a look at the idol industry in general. See if there's any merit to all the barbs that are being thrown out from Oshi no Ko's perspective. So let's get into it. But first, a little jam from Snail's house. So Oshi no Ko comes to us from Studio Doga Kobo, known for Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-kun, Gabriel Dropout, and New Game, to name a few. And they also employ background work from legendary background studio, Studio Easter. And I must say that finding out the studio behind Oshi no Ko was a bit of a surprise. Not that Doga Kobo are any slouches, but their work tends to be, these kind of like safer, slice of life kind of shows. And with Oshi no Ko, the production is so lavish and so over the top that it doesn't really fit with their general mold. But they kind of pull it off, which is interesting. In the director's chair for this one is Hiramaki Daisuke, who was at the helm for Koisuru Asteroid and Watashi ni Tenshi ga Mayorita. Two, serviceable shows. Nothing that really stand out, but, very nice, cute little shows. And the scripts for Oshi no Ko are being handled by Tanaka Jin, who is responsible for script composition in Yuru Camp as well as Love Live. So some cozy vibes and also some experience with idol-related material. So I think that's one of the key links here is to have Tanaka on the scripts there. Someone who's got experience writing for idol material, kind of knows kind of what the tropes might be and how to, best bring out the best in those tropes. And so I think that's a key person on this staff, I think, here. And finally, Oshi no Ko is based on the manga by Akasaka Aka, who is most famous for Kaguya-sama Love is War, a hugely popular love comedy show. I gotta say, I'm a fan of Kaguya-sama, but it wasn't as amazing as a lot of other people I know think that it is. It just didn't quite hit for me, but it's, it's a pretty solid, love comedy for what it is. But I think part of the reason that Oshi no Ko also has generated a lot of hype is because it comes from Akasaka Aka, and there are a lot of fans of Kaguya-sama, so having that connection definitely built some of the hype for Oshi no Ko, most certainly. So Oshi no Ko is kind of a hard series to describe right off the bat because it really is a tale of two halves here. This first episode that we get, the whole 80-90 minutes of it, focuses on the kind of life of upcoming idol Hoshino Ai and kind of some of the things that she's dealing with as part of her little idol group. The events of the show afterwards are kind of a focus on her children's lives, and so in that the tone of that is similar but different from this first episode. So when we're talking about the show in general, it is kind of like this weird split where there's this first episode that covers this kind of almost like a prologue, and then we end up in a different kind of story in the second half of the show, basically starting with episode 2, in fact. So tricky to kind of describe. So what I'll try and do is, because we're just going to try and talk about episode 1 here with, the kind of intro to the show, I'll focus on the plot that we get in that first episode only. So the show starts off by introducing us to Hoshino Ai, who is the center member, so the kind of like the leader, I guess, in a way, of the idol group B Komachi. And we get a little bit of an explanation as to kind of where she came from, her how the group has fared success-wise over the last little while, all thanks to her biggest fan, or one of her biggest fans, I suppose, a doctor who lives kind of out in the boonies, Amemiya Goro. And Goro here, he's like an obsessive kind of idol otaku guy here. He knows kind of everything about the Bikomachi group. He's got all the DVDs. Just kind of your typical obsessive fan. Now, one of Goro's patients is this appears to be terminally ill child, Sarina-chan, and she is also a fan of Bikomachi and I in particular. And so she and Goro have a little chat about what it would be like to be born as a child of a celebrity. And this is kind of like a weird conversation that might be a little bit of foreshadowing. And unfortunately, Sarina is not long for this world and passes away. And then we kind of, we jump ahead to present day again, and we're kind of hashing out why Goro is so obsessed with Bikomachi and Hoshino Ai, and it probably stems a little bit from losing Sarina at a young age there, and wanting to, continue to be a fan of Bikomachi in Sarina's honor, I guess, is his rationale at least. So we find out that Goro is an OBGYN, and his next patient just happens to be someone who's wearing a very conspicuous disguise with the last name of Hoshino. It doesn't quite trigger right away, but obviously it is the idol Hoshino Ai, who is here in this small town trying to avoid the press because she is pregnant, which is a no-no in the idol world for sure. So I guess with this plot point, it's worth pointing out at this time that in idol culture, it's very important to maintain the illusion, at the very least, that the idol themselves are pure. They are, unattached to any man. They're attainable in some kind of way. It's a really strange valuing of purity in the kind of young maiden that is something that's quite, perverse about idol culture. And there's plenty of writing about the kind of commodification and consumption of innocence that comes with the territory, and the very specific way in which femininity is constructed and commodified in the idol industry, and how this intense focus on the innocence and purity could lead to trauma experienced by women, and the kind of sacrificing of female agency at play here. So yeah, if word gets out that Hoshino Ai is pregnant, it would be terrible for the image of not only her, but of the Bikomachi group, which is why Hoshino Ai is here in this kind of, rural little town to kind of have her pregnancy dealt with out of the limelight, away from prying eyes, and she's able to kind of remain somewhat anonymous, as she kind of moves about the little town. And it's during this time that she gets a little chance to talk to Goro a little bit more, seeing as he's going to be her doctor for the next little while, as she kind of hides away in this little mountain town here. And so she talks to Goro about kind of what it's like to be an idol, and that it's all about spinning lies that your fans are going to believe. And she kind of makes the point that lies might in fact be the truest form of love, which is a very strange statement to make, but she seems to believe it, and I think a lot of idol fans want to believe those lies, and I think that's kind of one of the things that drives the industry. This show definitely tries to hammer that point home, but I think it is one that actually has some merit to it. You want to just believe in this fantasy that this, this girl or this group of girls, whoever your favorite idol or idols are, that in fact they're singing, they're performing, they're pouring their hearts out for you, the one and only true fan of this group or of this particular idol. It's all built on this big delusion that everyone just kind of buys into, which is strange. So the story doesn't really waste too much time. We kind of progress through Ai's pregnancy. There's little murmurings that she might be in town, but nothing has actually leaked to the point where media coverage has descended upon the town or anything like this. But as we approach the delivery date, Goro is more than happy to be available at any time to deliver the twins that Ai is carrying. But as he steps out for a smoke break or just to get a little bit of fresh air, he's confronted by someone who seems a little bit odd, a little bit strange. He appears to be a stalker of some sort, and wanting to protect Ai, Goro chases the stalker and ends up on the wrong end of being attacked by the stalker. And very suddenly, early on in this episode here, Goro dies. He's done for. So we get the title card finally 15 minutes in as Ai gives birth to her two twins, Aquamarine and Ruby, some very unique, destined for celebrity life kind of names. And it's here that all the talk previously, that, not only was it Serena who was talking about wanting to be reborn, the Goro talking about it as well and kind of being less than impressed with the idea. There was also a random patient at the hospital or someone who was waiting at the hospital who was also talking about being reborn. So all of this very blatant foreshadowing of this coming event here obviously comes to fruition in the fact that Goro has been reborn as Aquamarine, one of the two twins. So he gets to kind of live out this fantasy of being Ai's child. So the kids are healthy, and Ai is looking to make her return to Bikomachi with a appearance on a television show and then a little bit of a live performance recorded at a studio somewhere here. And this is where we get kind of some of the digs at the idol industry, the entertainment industry here, where Bikomachi is all set to perform. They're looking all, cute in all of their outfits and ready to roll on the stage here. And literally everyone who is part of the production team, cameramen, some of the producers and agents that are just kind of lingering around the set here, everyone is shit-talking them. This group has had no traction in the last little while. Are any of these girls even, memorable faces in any kind of way? They kind of point out that Ai is kind of the superstar of the group. There's a lot of comments about physical appearance, and so there's this definite negative attitude kind of permeating all of this. So the facade that we see on TV, I guess, being that the idols are perky and happy and everyone loves them, and then behind the scenes, in fact, nobody likes them in any way at all, which is disheartening to say the least. And again, it all comes back to lies. Everyone is, just kind of faking it till they make it. There's talk about how producers are just looking at the numbers, and as long as they're okay, they don't care what kind of drivel they're putting out. Meanwhile, we flash back to Ai's apartment, and Aqua is up watching the broadcast, just ecstatic to be in his current position. And it's then that Ruby, the other twin, wakes up from a nap and is distraught to be missing Mama's performance. And it's here that we get an introduction to Ruby, who is equally obsessed with Ai, and so is definitely relishing in the position that they find themselves in, also reborn. And I don't think it's any secret that this is probably Serena. I would be shocked to find out that this is not the case, but Ruby seems to be a bit more unhinged in her fan support of Ai, going so far as to somehow post on social media using someone's phone. So while Ai is on her little comeback tour, she has her manager's wife, Miyako, take care of the kids as to not arouse any suspicions. But Miyako is not too happy about this new role that she's been given, and so she kind of conjures up this harebrained scheme to maybe expose Ai, sell some photos to a tabloid or something, and live off of that cash infusion that she would get from that. And it's here that the two kids intervene. They had been able to talk to each other, and that kind of seemed like, oh, it's just two babies that are able to communicate for the sake of plot convenience. This is fine. But it turns out that the kids can actually also speak with the adults. So Aqua puts on this very old world, formal kind of speech and declares himself a divine messenger, and that Miyako should do as he says. Miyako is obviously a little bit shook by all of this, doesn't quite believe it, starts to kind of like ramble on and assumes that it's some kind of hidden camera prank show that she's been set up on, but of course this is not the case, and in fact Ruby also joins in and gives it her best shot with the kind of divine messenger shtick, setting up the terms that if Miyako dotes on the kids and doesn't spoil the secret, that she will avoid being punished, and will in fact maybe be rewarded with a second marriage to an actor husband. And she kind of eats up this story and agrees to kind of help the kids out in keeping Ai's secret under wraps. So Ai kind of laments that she's not making enough money to support her two kids and kind of the future that she wants for them. And Miyako kind of gives her the reality check that when you're in a group like B Komachi, you have to split all of your fees, all of the appearance fees that you make between all group members. Then there's the agency fees, blah, 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 blah. It kind of breaks down for us here what the takeaway is when, even if you're in an idol group that's fairly successful, your actual take-home pay, as it were, isn't really all that much. And if you kind of go off on your own to be a solo performer, you're competing against a lot of other established solo performers, and those kind of gigs that you might be getting are fiercely competitive. And so even when you try and break away as the most successful member of your group, there's no guarantee that you can then hack it as a solo artist. And as such, the reality is that many idols just get chewed up and spat out and end up just working regular jobs after their careers kind of come to an unceremonious end. But of course, this isn't what happens to Ai. She continues to kind of rise through the ranks and lands a couple of smaller gigs here and there, and so we get this kind of like skip forward as the two kids grow a little bit older, and as Ai starts to pick up steam with her career. And for one of these gigs, Miyako brings the two kids along, kind of passing them off as her own children. And this is where Aqua has a chance encounter with the director of this high school drama that Ai is going to be performing in. And the director has a lot of information to pass off to Aqua. He breaks down what kind of performers make up a cast of a given project. So you've got your main star, who is kind of like the name recognition attraction to a show or a film, and then you've got someone who is kind of the real talent behind the project. So an actor or actress who has the real chops to kind of bring a certain level of credibility to the project. And the third category is newcomers trying to make their mark. So as long as they, don't flub up, they test well enough with audiences, then they've proven their worth and they've, done all that's required of them. And so hopefully that kind of leads to more gigs. And that's kind of the role that Ai is in this situation. So again, we've gone through kind of what makes the idol industry hum, and now we're getting this kind of like big monologue about how the acting world works. And so it feels like there's like a lot of like baggage and kind of hang-ups going on here with like how critical elements of this show is with aspects of the entertainment industry at large. And I will say that it comes across as a little heavy-handed. I'm kind of fine with being very critical of these industries because they do seem like they're pretty horrible ones to be a part of. But I don't know, just the way that the dialogue has flowed so far in this massive first episode, like it just has these little moments where here's the stump speech kind of thing, and then we move on to some more kind of like lighthearted stuff, and then it's like, okay, here's the other issue that I have with the industry, and it's not woven in quite elegantly enough. But I mean, I appreciate that someone at least is calling out the BS. Then when Ai's part gets scaled back when the TV drama actually airs, Aqua, somehow he's a very advanced little toddler. He calls the director, as the director has given him his contact information, and he kind of asks what the deal is with that, and then we get another kind of long bit of exposition about how it's all kind of a hierarchy where the kind of top performer can kind of have a say in how they are portrayed as compared to everyone else on the cast. And when the top performer in this drama saw that I was just too cute or too pretty and taking up all the kind of screen space, they decided to cut her part a little bit because that was not working in accordance with the strategy of the kind of the lead actress in this drama that we've got here. So again, another like little inside look at some politics of how the acting world works, probably based on actual things that do occur in the industry. So I don't doubt that this is something that actually does happen. And this, I don't know, this is the second little kind of bit of exposition in a row where we get this long kind of diatribe about what it's like to be in this industry. This one sounded a little bit more natural, a bit more of a kind of a normal conversation that you would probably have. The first time that Aqua speaks with the director, I was kind of like, why is the director just going off like this? But this one, this follow-up does seem a little bit better. And we get a little scene where Aqua has taken on an acting gig. He's been keeping in touch with the director of Ai's high school TV drama project, and he's got this little bit part in a movie that he thinks Aqua would do really well in. And then we get to meet another character, a little precocious child actor, Arima Kana. And she's got this spoiled diva attitude where she's been told all her life that she's cute and precious and she can, cry at the drop of a hat, and, just what an amazing young talent she is. And so she's pretty full of herself. but Aqua still has the mental faculties of Goro kind of in him, and as such, he's able to kind of really make sense of what the acting scene is asking of him, and delivers a really great performance, and kind of shows up Kana, and this really sets her off. She doesn't know why this kid who showed up out of nowhere is all of a sudden the best kid star on the set. So things kind of putter on for a little bit. The Aqua and Ruby go to preschool. No one is aware that they are Ai's children still, so that's been kept under wraps successfully. Ai's career is still moving forward pretty well, and she's practicing for an upcoming concert, and has a bit of a bonding moment with Ruby, so we get a little bit of Ruby focus, and we learn the surprise not surprise that in fact she's reincarnated from Serena, the sick kid from earlier that Goro was caring for all those years ago. So not a real shocker there. I think they pretty much telegraphed it pretty early on, so no spoilers there. Things are going so well that B. Komachi is going to be performing at I assume Tokyo Dome, but there's a little bit of an explanation as to why making it to dome status is kind of a big deal. So everyone's getting fairly excited about this dome concert that is coming up, and then we get a little flashback to when I kind of first started out, and kind of reflecting on her whole journey so far. We get a nice appearance from the Starbucks in the Shibuya Scramble, which is probably one of the most famous stupid Starbucks locations ever. It shows up in a lot of anime. Any ones that are set in like Tokyo and has people visit Shibuya, you just see it there. So it's always in frame, and I've been there. It's really cramped, and it's a little bit outdated at this point. It's not really a great Starbucks to visit, and it's always super busy. So it really sucks to go to that Starbucks. There's plenty of decent coffee shops that are in the area that are better and less occupied. Everything has been going quite well. A little too well, perhaps. Like just the way that the music comes in. It's all this like soft piano stuff. We've got a lot of scenes with vignetting, which kind of makes them look dreamy. So this is about like the hour mark of the episode. So we're getting close to the end here. And this is kind of where, in these few minutes here, it's starting to give off vibes that something not good is coming. So this big twist happens, and then there's the kind of immediate fallout from said twist, and it's here in just the last few minutes of the episode where we really get to see where the series is going to go from here. We get a time skip to Aqua and Ruby as teenagers getting ready to start high school, and there's like a mystery afoot here. So that's why this episode needed to be as long as it is, to get through all of these elements and keep viewers wanting more. If we were presented with like a first 3 episode approach to this, we would only be getting to maybe just the big twist after 3 episodes worth of content. And for my money, like if I'm watching just the first half of this show as separate episodes, I might tune out. The way that it takes its time with the prologue is, like nice. The pacing is good, but the show doesn't really give you too much in the way of anything else. So it really makes a lot of sense why they decided to go with this kind of supersized episode approach. And this one is big. Usually, like a double size episode is not out of the realm of possibility. Demon Slayer does it quite a bit. But to have basically a movie length first episode is quite something. I feel like there's another show coming out in either the fall or the winter of 2024. Raren, I think is the name, and it is also starting with a giant first episode. Must be a lot of stuff to cover in that first episode to really hook people in, and I'm hearing good things about it already, so that's kind of exciting. But here with Oshi no Ko, they had to give us all of these 80 minutes or so to give us that hook, because the show does like shift quite a bit from this prologue segment. And if I'm being perfectly honest, what I saw after this first episode was somewhat less appealing than I thought it was going to be. They kind of set the stage for this really kind of like dark, could be very edgy mystery to take hold and really start to dig into some more seedier elements of the entertainment world. And I think that they do in some respects, and they've actually caught a bit of flack for kind of pulling from the headlines a little bit too liberally, perhaps, in the case of the wrestler Kimura Hana, who took her own life as a result of cyberbullying, and that is a plot point that comes up in a later episode. So it still kind of gets in its like digs at the industry, but this first episode kind of like dazzles you with all kinds of nice idol sequences. The Bikomachi group performs a couple of times, and all of that looks really good. The character designs are really sharp. The characters do look good all the way through in later episodes as well, but they went really big in this first episode. They really were splashing the cash around, and then it just kind of like it slipped into this like high school kind of slight inklings of mystery going on, but I don't know, there wasn't a lot that really grabbed me after this first episode. It's not to say that it was bad or anything, but the way that people talk about this show is crazy to me. I think it's like good, but even in just this season, I think I've watched 2 or 3, 4 shows even that are like, head and shoulders above this one. But I don't know, people really bought into this first episode, and this first episode really does pull a lot of people in. So I can see why it was so successful. So if we pull away from Oshi no Ko's look at the idol industry to some work that is more focused on the idol industry in the real world, there is a pretty interesting little documentary that came out in 2017 called Tokyo Idols that follows kind of this up-and-coming idol, a 19-year-old named Rio, and she's just starting to make headway in the Tokyo scene, and she's got a group of fans who are known as the Rio Brothers, who attend all of her shows. They're her biggest fans, biggest supporters, and they're gonna put her over the top, and she's gonna finally make it. That's what they all believe. They believe that what they're doing as fans is kind of lifting her up, and that she's amazing. And so this documentary does a really good job of kind of showing you what Oshi no Ko is critiquing, and by and large, Oshi no Ko does a decent job of kind of getting at what makes idol culture kind of so gross or fake or just hollow. But what you do see in this documentary, Tokyo Idols, is that the fans that follow these idols, they are like sad sack loser kind of guys, but like what it says about just the state of men's relationships in Japan, I think is quite dire. That these guys, they work dead-end jobs, they're underemployed for their skills or something. They just feel like they've got nothing to strive for. They're, mostly unmarried. I don't think there'd be a wife who would be like really cool about her husband heading off and, ogling this 19-year-old idol. So what you see is that these guys are kind of sad sacks, but they do come together and they find this little, like, friendship group, really, as kind of being fans of Rio together. So there's that element that makes this whole thing seem a bit more positive, but then we also get a few cases in the documentary where younger idol groups with members like as young as 10 who are the kind of focus of the adoration of these 30 and 40-year-old guys, and that comes off as horrific. These guys they're attending like handshake events for these like 5th graders, and snapping photos. It just looks like a weird like pedo convention or something. Like there is something that is seriously wrong about it. It kind of shows a real downside of this industry in the way that if these young girls just don't seem to have any kind of agency. They they've, I suppose, chosen to be an idol, but they're not really, I want to sing and I want to dance, like I'm 10 years old. Okay, we're gonna put you on stage and we're gonna have all these old men like just horn dog over you, and that's really sad. There are more candid interviews of idols in the documentary who realize what they're doing and, know that it's just another gig, and are kind of aware of the boundaries that they want to set, and that they are kind of, as, much as Ai does in Oshi no Ko, that she's just, putting on a smile, and these guys all like to be lied to, that this perfect young girl really does love them. And so there are cases where you could make an argument, I suppose, for a bit of empowerment, but I feel like the industry as a whole is still pretty regressive and ultimately sexist and not great. So Oshi no Ko has firmly planted its flag on the matter here, that idol culture is not healthy, and something about it needs to change. But like, what exactly do you do with idol culture? Because it seems that the problems run a lot deeper, that there's something that is, deeply sad about being a guy in Japan these days, and that there is not enough support in Japanese culture to kind of direct male energy elsewhere, and so they fantasize about this perfect girl, these pure teenaged idols who will either one day marry them, or at the very least show them love, even if that love is just a lie. We're fully into a kind of postmodern kind of affective economy where even the image of a girl, of a woman who is pure and is enough, that is what is being paid for here. It's that image that is so important. When we're watching Oshi no Ko, we see that Ai is making sure to take notes about how her smile looks, about how her eyes look. She needs to present this image of the perfect idol in order for her fans to continue to support them. She has to be not even human. She needs to be this otherworldly kind of being, and so it's all this fabrication, and that's kind of the way that it's broken down, and that's all that really matters. It doesn't really matter what Hoshi no Ai actually is like. All that matters is what the image of I as the center member of Be Komachi, and that persona comes through in live performances, in handshake events, in the photos that they release for sale as a group. That image of what she is the most important thing, and so that's definitely what's being critiqued here. But and it is interesting that the focus is kind of on and the way that an idol kind of lies to you, as opposed to like the fans also being a little bit out of touch with reality. It is a product of the society itself that has led them to kind of be this way, but there is less emphasis on that element, I think, at least from what I have seen. And although there is the whole case of the stalker is a very real problem that a number of idols have faced over the years in real life. There have been cases where idols have been stalked and stabbed, sexually assaulted. So it's not a good thing. So there is that definite element of it that these girls are at risk, perhaps, and that there's been a lot of talk about how the government doesn't do enough to try and protect women, which that could be somewhere where real change could have a huge impact, because just little incidents of sexual assault or sexual harassment in workplaces, on trains and things like that are still prominent in Japan. Like, it's kind of that everyday kind of like creep vibe that a lot of girls have to deal with. And so if through something like critiquing the idol culture, you end up with laws in place that will help protect women as victims of this kind of behavior, that would be a huge net positive. I don't think that Oshi no Ko's got the chops to really do that, but I don't know, it's better than just kind of going along with the idol industry and saying everything's peachy keen, which it really isn't. So yeah, that I think that's gonna about wrap it up for a little look at Oshi no Ko here. I guess we'll kind of get back to the idea that it was just a very interesting case if we're trying to follow this first 3 rule when kind of critiquing a show, because if we didn't get to the big twist until the very end of episode 3, it would probably like still work as kind of a hook to keep you interested, because if it ends on the big twist, then of course you're going to tune into the next episode to see what the deal is, what the aftermath of it is. But you might not make it that far if you only are watching those first 2 episodes. If we broke down this first giant episode into 3.5 episodes of content, those first 2, like, I don't know, kind of run of the mill. It wasn't anything too special. Lots of pointed critique at the idol industry and the entertainment industry fits into those first 2 episodes, or what would be those first 2 episodes. But like, what's the hook? What's keeping me in on this? Like, you're not really too sure. And so it was a wise decision by the production company to kind of package this as one giant episode. It created a lot of buzz, even though the show was airing on High Dive as opposed to Crunchyroll or Netflix. So it did miss out on a bit of an audience there. But I think, word got out, and if people weren't subscribed to High Dive, which is not a huge subscriber base for that streaming platform quite yet, I'm sure a lot of people just pirated it or found it elsewhere through other means, because the buzz was very real and everyone was kind of talking about that first episode. I did notice that, like, all of that chatter did start to dissipate as the series went on, which I think kind of speaks to that back half not being quite as strong as this first episode. Kind of settled into a bit of a rhythm and got a little bit tropey at times, but from the first episode, worth watching. Very interesting, 80 minutes of a show setting itself up pretty well, looking very sharp, and delivering a pretty interesting twist at the end. So, worth checking out. The rest of the series, I don't know, maybe not. But that's it for this week's episode. Just the one show, but we'll be back next week with more, and we'll start to gear up for the summer season, which has a couple of shows on the docket that we'll hopefully get to here. So yeah, thanks of course for tuning in, and be sure to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/thefirst3. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.